I want to start by removing the wheel. I'm going to use a little pry bar and just very gently pry the hubcap off. Of course, if you don't have this, then don't worry about it. There we go. Hold it because it likes to go flying. Set that aside, and then with a 21mm socket, remove all 5 of your lug nuts and then remove the wheel. In the trunk, you'll see these 2 caps, one on each side. Let's remove them. I'm going to use a trim tool, but you can use a screwdriver or whatever else you have. And right in here, you'll see the top of the shock, so let's remove that nut. The trick to doing this is you need a 6mm Allen to fit inside of the center of this stud from the shock, and then you hold this nut with a 17mm wrench, and you actually want to tighten the stud. That way it spins clockwise and pushes itself down through the nut. Okay, there we go. Take this out. Take this piece off as well as the rubber bushing. Okay, don't forget which order these go in. And now let's go underneath and remove the rest of the shock. 17mm socket on the bolt side and 17 wrench on the nut side. Take this off. All right, okay, compress the top of the shock downward. That way you can wiggle this. Okay, now wiggle the shock out, and you can take this top sleeve right off, and here's your old shock absorber. Before I install this shock in the car, I want to prime it or start it, which means compressing it down about 3 to 5 times. Go all the way. It's not very comfortable on the hand, but you want to go down, back up, let it rise by itself. This is called starting or priming because it mixes up the oils and gases that are inside. And if you don't do this, you might hear some clunking over bumps for the first little bit of driving. And although you might think that's not a big deal, well, this actually helps prolong the life of the shock, so you should do this. If you have something to put right here to press up against, that's a lot better, and it probably will hurt less. Okay, let's get this installed. Take your new shock and this top sleeve here and slide those 2 together. Make sure the top of the shock obviously comes out through here. Now slide it up into position and line up the bolt on the bottom, and then slide the bolt through. It came from the inside towards the outside. Reattach the nut. Let's snug them up and then torque it to 66 foot-pounds. Now on this, you can't torque the nut side because the nut has these little grippies that help it not to spin, which hopefully it doesn't, but I'm still going to use this for safety just in case it does want to spin when I torque it. 66 foot-pounds. Perfect, right there. Back at the top, put this bushing in, and then this top plate here, and it looks like I'll have to jack up the suspension a little bit to get the shock all the way through. Okay, tell me when. Is that good? Let's put the bushing on. Make sure it gets fully seated, and then that washer, and then the new locking nut. Okay, hold the nut with an 18mm, and now the stud has a 5mm Allen, so it's smaller, and this time you need to loosen on the stud to suck it up into the nut. All right about there. The torque for this is 18 foot-pounds, but it'll be really hard to torque this nut. So what I did is I just basically went until this bushing down here started to squish. That's how I know it's good. And let's put this cap back on. Let's get the wheel back on. Start on all 5 of your lug nuts, snug them up, and torque them to 76 foot-pounds. All right, let's put the hubcap back on if you have one. And if you do, make sure you line up this slot with the valve stem. Where is it? Right there. Otherwise it will get crushed. Put putting these on can be tricky because they usually want to pop off in other places as you put them on. There we go. Got it. All right. Take it for a road test.